So we'll do the shoulder stand, the plow, the bridge, and the fish, which is kind of like this really common kind of sequence of poses in lots of different traditions. So we can just start laying down. Yeah, so you always make sure you have enough room behind you. It's no problem here just for your feet to come down behind. And then you can just raise into plow first, bring your arm or legs over the body. And then bring the hands to the low back, kind of walk your elbows together. And then when you're ready, you can raise your legs up into the air. Beautiful. So sometimes it takes a little while, especially if you do it in the morning, to kind of open up. Sometimes the shoulders will be tight or the back will be tight. So maybe after 5 or 6 breaths, sometimes it's nice to lower the knees down on the forehead, and you can kind of bring the elbows a little closer together, and then bring the hands again on the low back as close to the floor as they'll go, and then you can raise back up again. So that's a good self-adjustment anybody can do. So this is great. We can see both people have their, fingers towards their spine and the thumbs kind of next to their body. So the palms are pretty flat to the back. So there's this kind of tripod between the back and the elbows and the, humerus bone. So beautiful. So in shoulder stand, you can kind of gaze up at the toes or maybe even close your eyes if you're comfortable. Yeah. So, they both look really good. I'll just do some adjustments. One adjustment, you can just have people gently push up onto the balls of their feet and they'll kind of lift up a little bit. So the hips are kind of lifting up and coming over the head as much as possible, and the legs are going up as straight as possible. Another adjustment, a little bit more involved. You need to be careful and aware of who you do this on. Is to just kind of, I guess the most gentle way is to just grab their feet and they can kind of push off of that and straighten themselves up. This is a great way to do it. Or you can actually get in here, move the elbows slightly together, pull them up a little bit, and then they can reposition, and then trying to release. So just be cautious with that one because the neck is in a pretty fragile position, so you just want to make sure that people are comfortable. Obviously don't do that with a beginner. So these guys are both pretty experienced, and they're pretty vertical, really balancing on the shoulders. This is called the shoulder stand. Another variation, or modified, some people at times their legs will be farther back and you can bring your hips back this way a little bit. So this is kind of more like sometimes people call it the candle, if they can't come up all the way. So the legs are over here to kind of counterbalance their body so there's not as much weight on the elbows. This is a great variation. Anywhere in here, sometimes people will look like this, sometimes people will go all the way vertical. So it's all kind of the shoulder stand or shoulder stand variation there. Beautiful. Yes, so it's good to keep the head centered and the chin's kind of pushing into the chest, or the chest pushing into the chin rather. And that's a shoulder stand. So from here we can lower down into the plow, just lower both feet down towards the floor. And at first we'll have the toes touching down and the heels reaching away. Beautiful. Yeah, and then if, I'd tell people once the toes touch down, then you can reposition the hands off of the back. If the toes aren't touching down, I think it's good to have that support of the arms on the back. And then adjustments here. You can kind of lift the knees up gently. I'm not applying any pressure here. I'm just kind of just touching them. See what happens over here. He's a little tighter over here, so I'm not applying any pressure, and they're not moving, so he's probably at his edge there. Can you bring your hands together at all? There we go. Beautiful. So this is, becomes a shoulder opener too by having the hands together, and it's like, bringing your arm way back. So we're going to be stretching the shoulder muscles in there too. Nice. So we kind of reach the knees towards the sky, reach the heels back, So an adjustment here, I can just gently push down on the hands, just gently. So this is pretty gentle here, just doing this. Or I can get in and do something a little bit more involved, bringing my heel into here, and I'm going to lift up, and I can get some leverage as I bring my heel down, and then I'm going to just gently push here. And again, always moving gently, letting the person move, kind of initiate the movement, and then you can support that movement. And then, of course, always releasing slowly from that too. Beautiful. And then let's slowly lower down so we can bring the hands flat to the floor or onto the back, and then just slowly lower down. And it's great to let the legs, you can see they're letting the legs rest over the head as a counterbalance, and it's pretty easy to lower down that way. And then you can either hug the knees in or lower straight down. Beautiful. And then we'll move right into the bridge. We can bend the knees, bring the feet close to the hips. So the outsides of the feet are going to be parallel. So you kind of bring the heels out a little bit, and then about hip width apart. So sometimes there's a tendency, to have the heels close in and the feet out. So we want to kind of reverse that. The feet are a little apart and the outsides of the feet parallel. So you can bring your feet a little wider. Nice. And then so we're going to start this movement from the hips. We can lift the hips up, the knees kind of reach out, and then we'll lift all the way up. And then again, there's several hand positions. You can leave the hands palms down, or you can interlace the hands under the body and kind of walk the shoulders together. Or sometimes people are flexible enough they can reach down and grab the ankles. And then another hand variation, which is also a good one, is you can bend the elbows and bring the hands on the low back and kind of supported bridge here. And just as long as you're not feeling it, in the hand too much, this is a good one. Sometimes people feel it in the hands. You can lower back down, just your hands down to the floor. Beautiful. So here the idea is, as we squeeze these palms together, we can squeeze our shoulder blades together. This opens up the front side of the body, opens up the heart. And you can see our knees are splaying out just a little bit. This happens, there's a strong tendency to do that. So if we bring some energy, kind of the knees slightly together, and then there's this energy going down the insides of the legs, pushing down the insides of the feet, it kind of brings the hips into a little bit different alignment, and it brings the low back into a little different alignment too. Beautiful. So the chest is kind of reaching out, it's coming over the chin. So the thighs are really engaged, the hips are lifting, and then everything is kind of sliding back. Sometimes people will even do an adjustment here and gently push. I don't like this one so much because it can kind of jam the spine a little bit. So I wouldn't actually push, but it's, just a really gentle touch with a finger can kind of give that message to the person. And then something to be careful here is to make sure your knees are not in front of your ankles. You can just lower down a little bit there. You can see how his knees are actually, bring your foot back a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then lift up again. So you can see his feet are a little too close to his head now, so his knees are out in front of the foot. This is just a little weaker position for the knee. So typically, bring it back. It's good to have the ankles right under the knees, so it's a strong position for the knees. Beautiful. You guys are probably getting tired. You can lower right back down, let the hips come down last. So this is a great variation to bring your arms up and come up on your toes, or you can just lower down. Either one's great. Yeah, and then hugging the knees into the chest. So that's a pretty kind of call it anti-gravity pose. You're really engaging your muscles and lifting your body up. So it's pretty physical to hold it quite a while. And then for the fish, extend the legs out on the floor, bring the arms under the body, and lift the chest and back up off the floor, arching back, letting the head drop down. Beautiful. So there's several things to think about. You can, think about just pushing up right at the midpoint of the chest, or you can bring the finger just on the low back and gently, I'm not really pushing, but just like that's right where we want to lift, right there in the upper back. Or we can get in here and kind of grab underneath the low back and kind of massage up to the mid back, lifting up a little higher and arching back. So the head does touch the floor, but most of the weight will stay on the elbows here. Beautiful. So it's good to take a few deep breaths here when we're, the lungs are nice and open, the throat is opening, the heart is opening, the lungs are open. And then we can inhale, lift the head up, and exhale, lowering back down. Beautiful. And you can maybe bring the hands under the head, interlace, and just tucking the chin up towards the chest. And then releasing down. Beautiful. So that's kind of those 4 poses of shoulder stand, plow, bridge, and fish. Kind of the basic variations.